Hey, welcome folks to the My Black Diabetes Meal Plan podcast. This is Dr. Smith. I'm joined today with Russender Powell. She is the nutrition lady. She is a registered dietitian nutritionist, and she's actually been very instrumental in putting together some of the meals that we actually use in the My Black Diabetes Meal Plan. She has recommended these mushroom tacos that I love to make on my Saturdays and Sundays and eat them as breakfast tacos. They're so fantastic. But what we're here to talk about today is getting very clear on some of the nutrition myths. I want to make sure that I'm answering and asking some of the questions you folks have put in the group and getting very, very clear about what foods are essential for us to be ingesting and taking in. And so thank you so much, Rusinder, for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And to add on to that, in addition to being a registered dietitian nutritionist, I'm also a certified diabetes care and education specialist.
That's right.
Well, so what I'm speaking to you guys about is definitely how I practice with regards to the guidelines and how I help people manage their diabetes. Um, in regards to putting food together and being able to have those conversations with their physicians about what their plan should look like, and also just be more mindful of your body.
Mm.
That you or have pre-diabetes to figure out, is this something I should be worried about? Do I should need to make changes now? So that's kind of what I do, what I offer to the world to help you manage your diabetes.
And we're glad that you're here to help us manage because one of the first things I did this morning, I just reached out to the group and I was like, hey, any questions? One question that really stood out and that came up was, how does iron affect the A1C? Is there something, people with high A1C, should they be taking iron supplements? Do they need to? Is there any relationship between when I take in iron as a substance? Do my blood sugars go up? Do they go down? Is there anything to the science?
Yeah, in regards to current studies and current clinical guidelines in regards to iron and blood sugar management, there's nothing definitive at all. It could be a result of something else going on nutrition wise that could be looking like a blood sugar issue. One of the common things you see is with fatigue with those with diabetes. And if you have low iron, it can also cause fatigue. So that's one of the key instrumental roles with iron. It helps with energy because it transports oxygen to every cell in our body there. So without oxygen, we have no energy. So it definitely helps with that. Also, just our blood health in regards to making sure that we're pushing the nutrients where it needs to be. And it also helps with our hair, our bright face and glow. It helps with that. One of the things that you notice when you don't have a lot of free floating iron is that you look kind of pale and dull there. So that's where we mostly try to manage that. Also with memory, if you're not getting oxygen to your brain, your forgetfulness is on next levels there. And so, which can also mimic another diabetic related symptom is memory fog. Whenever you have high blood sugars, it can cause that memory fog there. So I can see how someone could think they should take the iron because of some of the symptoms that kind of mirror those related to diabetes. But to make it simple, nothing related to diabetes, but definitely needed to have just for overall well-being.
Oh, that's perfect. And you know, one of the things that I'm so glad you mentioned is that you know what you're talking about because you're also a certified diabetes educator. And as in addition to being a registered dietitian nutritionist, so you've seen it all. A lot of folks in this group love dairy and believe in dairy,
Yeah.
but then one day dairy stops loving them, and, so why is something like dairy? How come it causes people problems all of a sudden?
Yeah, absolutely. To make the answer simple, just kind of put it out there, there's actually 4 different types of lactose intolerance,
Mm.
which is so interesting. But what you would know is that over time, you will eat a piece of cheese or something. You're like, oh, wow, I feel bloated. I have cramps. I'm having some issues GI wise. And so as we get older, we lose the robust production of the enzyme lactase that break down the natural sugar in milk, which is lactose. We lose that ability and our threshold becomes lower and lower over time. So the little bit we do make is really not going to help out if we're eating a whole bowl of queso or a double cheeseburger, however, that has a bunch of dairy in it. So we do see that kind of wane out over time. Now, there, like I said, it's 4 different types. Some people are just born with it, have a genetic predisposition for it, it just doesn't work. And so you mostly see that in African Americans, Asian Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans. You mainly see that in that group, mainly us, and 3 out of 4 African American Black people have lactose intolerance. And it's not by coincidence, it's a genetic adjustment or a genetic adaptation. So you got to think about like harsh environments where it's really hot. Herding and raising cattle wasn't one thing they could do safely or sustain it, right? And so if we're eating off of the land and eating what's around us, well, if you're not having cows, you don't have milk, we never adapted to digest those types of things. So we see that lactose intolerance is high in those populations group, but mainly us, we just can't tolerate dairy products, doesn't work well with us. Now, this not to say that we can never have it. You just gotta find your limits. You know, you may do okay with ice cream every now and then.
Right, sure.
You can do a single serve versus a double scoop. So you have to figure that out there. But the beauty of it is that even though we can't have milk per se, there's so many other ways to get your calcium and vitamin D, through, your almonds, your tofu, certain milks, and even oatmeal has been fortified with calcium and vitamin D. So we're not really missing out. And some of those adjustments have been made because we have spoken of whenever it comes to like our dietary guidelines, when they're encouraging us to eat 2 to 3 servings of dairy per day to get our vitamin D. Well, that's not fair. If people who can't digest it, so they have taken this step back and well, you know what? There's some people who can't digest it. It's not fair to make it a guideline. Let's just fortify it. Let's just add it to things so that way it's equal playing field for everyone there. So it's definitely not uncommon where even if you're Anglo-Saxon, you may get 70, you're like, I can't have it anymore. Your body just ran out the ability to make that enzyme. So
I see. And I guess my issue was always that the dairy always seemed to have, a lot of extra sugar in it. That you might go and grab a yogurt, and the one that you really want, you don't want the plain stuff. You want the one that's got the sprinkles and the whole, and unfortunately, we can make the mistake of believing that yogurt is a health food, when really what we're looking for are some of the nutrients like the calcium, the protein, these other sources that are contained in the yogurt, but you don't have to have the yogurt in order to get your protein and calcium.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And
how would you handle that?
And so with that, yogurt is one of the dairy foods that even people lactose intolerant can tolerate because it's fermented. So like our fermented dairy, like our kefir, our yogurt, our hard cheeses, we can digest that because basically digestion has happened before us, so we don't have to break it down like fermented out there. So I always encourage people not to get fixated on one food. Look at the broad spectrum. So if you're looking at yogurt as your option, let's focus on health first, especially if it has like the added syrups and things there, because most people, to be honest, don't like that bite, that tartness of yogurt. But it has to get off the shelf, right? So they'll add a little syrup to it. They add a little strawberry flavoring to it. Yes. So I always tell people, like, look at the health first. Like, yeah, yogurt is healthy. But let's add our own sweetness to it. Let's add some fruit to it. Take a step back and let's find natural ways to sweeten it if you need to do that.
So I'm hearing you say that, if you want the yogurt, if you have to have it, well, that's fine, but let's at least take responsibility for the sweetness. And there's so many good ways that we can make a yogurt or even like an oatmeal that we can make it sweet with things that are actually good for us. What might be some of the ways that you would do that?
Yeah, so I often counsel people to, like I said, fruit first, like your berries, because they have a high fiber content, they have water, so they're going to fill you up more. So basically, it's going to extend the satiety factor of that yogurt, because yogurt is filling, but adding that to it. I often have people add a little bit of granola, to it, maybe sweeten with a little bit of honey. That's fine there. And you only need just like one little dollar, maybe a teaspoon or two, because yogurt's small, if you can 6 ounces. That would be fine, there. I have encouraged people who's like, especially if they are one that's really, really into sugar and they eat a lot, switching to fruit if like it's not sweet enough for Cinder, I need some more. So I encourage them, say, hey, let's just maybe do some stevia, natural stevia, add a little bit of that with your fruit, just to kind of retrain your tongue to get used to something that's still sweet but not as sweet.
Right.
So I encourage people to do that, just those little tips and tricks, because whenever someone's trying to make the adjustment to eating for their diabetes to manage it, they don't want to feel like they have to make a bunch of sacrifices in their foods and things that they want to eat, because that's the number one thing that keeps people from sticking to the plan. They're like, well, I love all these foods and you're telling me I can't have it. Yeah, you can't have it. We're just going to have to do it with a twist and just retrain that palate. So your tongue turns over every 7 days. So by time 2 weeks of a plan, when you try to go back to your old way of eating, you start noticing like, wow, I used to eat this much sugar. I used to eat this much salt, because you've retrained yourself. You retrained your palate. So that's the biggest thing. It's just kind of wiping the slate clean.
Well, Rusin, you just dropped some heavy information, because in some ways you've elevated this conversation, because I've never heard anyone say that your tongue turns over every 7 days. Now, I have heard people say, and I am a big believer, that there is a tight sort of neurochemistry between the brain and the tongue, and so there is a way to create new habits. I wasn't thinking about doing it in 7 days, and so what do you mean when you say the tongue turns over every 7 days? I am imagining that there's a lesson in here for folks, and I want to make sure we get it.
It's like anything. It's kind of like you've trained your tongue. The foods that you eat is not something you were born to say I like. It's things
Right.
done on a repeated basis. So your tongue will pick up certain tastes and certain things and get certain responses based off of repeated action. So with the tongue, if you stick with it, it becomes basically those heightened sweet sensors. But kind of like just calm down. Give them 7 days and they kind of level out. They're not so heightened, to want to taste sweet first. It is kind of just level set.
Yes,
Just a level setting for 7 days.
Yeah. So it's like a reset on
Reset.
the palate. And I mean, the implications of that statement are so astounding, because that also means that if somebody is used to having a Reese's Pieces every night before bed,
Yeah,
is used to drinking the chocolate milk before the bed, is used to having that soda, that can of Pepsi before the bed, the issue would be that you are slowly and consistently training your body to actually want more of that food.
absolutely.
So that can be a tremendous negative, but there's also the way to make it positive, which is to say that if you're having your greens before bed, or you're doing a fresh salad and you've got your berries, so you have only natural sweeteners on it. You've got your yogurt, but you've also got your berries, so there's natural sweeteners on it.
Oh,
Now you're training your mind for success. You're training your mind for things that are going to keep you alive. Not only that, but healthy and happy.
absolutely. So it's just retraining. Like anything, your body adapts. So we've adapted to a certain way that we eat and certain food preferences and all that. We've adapted to this, but who's to say you can't change it
Mm.
and you can go back? You just have to give it time for your body to adjust to it, because your body will fight you and say, I want that. What do you mean? So you telling me I'm gonna have Reese's Pieces at the end of the day. So after a while, it would just go away and it's not even an issue anymore. But yeah, it's just a
Yes.
habit. Just habit.
So folks, just to keep that as simple as possible, from me, what I'm hearing you say is it gets so much easier as you go.
It does.
Mm.
It gets so much easier and your body starts working the way that it was designed, because it's not natural for us to have so much, intense sugar, and for us to kind of basically be hot wired every day off of the sweets and things. So you would definitely appreciate how your body functions and runs once you start tapering it off.
And I love what you're talking about in terms of natural, giving our bodies what we naturally need. because one of the questions I have here is about keto diets. I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with these, but after being first diagnosed, most people, they start to worry about their carbohydrates. That's one of the things that we first talked about, you and I together. Can you break down why carbs are our body's first line of energy source? And does that what does that mean for keto? Does that mean that keto diets are better for us because they're lower in carb, or are they better for, or are they worse for us because they're not high in carb? That's where I want to go. So the first part of this question really is just about, why are carbs so important to us when we often think that they're the enemy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, carbohydrates are our primary energy source for our body to run off of. Most of our metabolic symptoms run off of carbohydrates. We need them. Our muscles need them for fuel. We need them from times that we are not eating, because we can store, carbohydrates there. So it's the way our body was designed to function. If someone is a runner or any type of athlete, they can't perform well off of a keto diet. They need the carbohydrates there. Also, your body has a hierarchy to sustain our body, our life. So carbohydrates is first with primary energy, just to keep everything functioning, for our heart to pump, for our lungs to, contract in and out, for us to breathe, for us to blink. All this is carbs, right? So, and then if we run too low on carbs, like the keto, your body's like, okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try to break down some fat stores. And that's where people start seeing the weight loss. One, anytime you remove carbs, you're going to lose water weight. That's the first thing, because wherever there's carb is water.
That's
But
right.
then you keep going on with that with prolonged deprivation of carbohydrates, then you start breaking down fat. And ketones is the impartial breakdown of fat. So now you're forcing your body, because your body wants carbs, it's going to break down that chemical backbone of fat to make carbs. So it'll start gluconeogenesis. It'll start making its own carbs because it wants carbs.
Right.
And so after that is exhausted, you start breaking down your muscle. We never want to lose our muscle, because once you lose it, it's gone. And then your metabolism reduces, because muscles will make you metabolically active, right?
Right.
So to make it simple, why ketosis doesn't work for those with diabetes, because one, it's not the way that we're designed to function. We need carbohydrates just to sustain life, right? Our brain needs carbs, every organ needs carbohydrates. Also, whenever you're breaking down fat, it changes your blood pH, and you will start noticing it when people are in ketosis, especially those who have diabetes and don't know they have diabetes. Whenever they go into diabetic ketoacidosis, their breath smells like acetone or fresh, rank gym socks. Is what it smells like. And so that's when you know that blood sugar has gotten high, because it's not recognizing carbs anymore. It's not converting carbs to energy anymore. It's just using solely fat for energy. So with that, you can go into a coma. You can create organ failure. So that no one wants to go through that, just following a keto diet, or just being diabetic ketoacidosis when your body doesn't recognize insulin to transport the glucose there. So long story short, it's not sustainable. Also, you gotta think about it. You cut out an entire food group that provides you with vitamins and minerals. So where are your B vitamins? Where's your energy? How are you going to get your energy if you cut out the carbohydrates? Where's your fiber? Okay, your gut health is now compromised. You're there because you cut out your carbs. So it's never smart to follow a diet that's going to eliminate an entire food group, because you're eliminating a whole energy and vitamin mineral source. Like, where are you going to get that? And there's nothing that can replace it.
So I'm hearing you say, that's why I love talking with nutritionists who know what they're talking about, because there's about 4 or 5 things that you said in there that are so critical. One, the keto diet is not even in line with how our bodies are designed, which means, number 2, that if we're not having beans, that means we're not getting, probiotics. If we're cutting out all of our carbohydrates, You said gut health, which means that there are positive bacteria that we're not introducing into the system, which can then affect not only our immune system, but likely also our neurochemistry.
Of
So
course.
if we're leaving all of that stuff out, because the some guy on YouTube said that, hey, this is going to get you ripped. Well, what else is it going to do after it gets me ripped? It's going to get
Absolutely.
me into a coma because I don't need that in my life. I got to be at work in the morning.
Absolutely. So for short term, yeah, you see people with the weight loss and like, I'm doing great, whatever. But in my time of, coaching people for diabetes management and weight management, and they come to me like, I've tried the keto, whatever. I'm like, well, how long were you able to stay on it? Oh, I can only do it for a few months. It's not sustainable. Also, why do something when you follow the keto? Let's say you go to a party or whatever, and you don't eat the keto type food, you have what they call the keto flu, where you feel like you have flu-like symptoms because your body hadn't been able to process carbs for this whole time. So it kind of like doesn't recognize it anymore. So you kind of feel sick. So like, why would you want to keep doing that? But every time you have, an outing or a social or whatever, your food plan should not be a prison. Like you should be able to do exactly what you do today at a friend's house, holiday, or whatever, and still stay in the same, level for your blood sugars or your weight or however. So you have to look at that, like, what are you sacrificing?
Right.
It's not that deep.
It's not. It's just not that deep. Why is she saying that? Why is the nutrition lady come on and tell you that? Because, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you understand that you can still lose the weight without that by just eating the right way.
Absolutely. You can. And so you want it to be a lifestyle, not a diet. Diets have expiration dates, but this is your lifestyle, something you do every day, like brushing your teeth. You don't pick and choose days to brush your teeth, like you do it every day. Same thing with your nutrition. It's everyday thing.
And that's so beautiful. I know that it is, we got about 1 minute left. And so I really just want to thank you for coming on. We need to do this again because I didn't even get through my entire list of questions. Well, I will definitely be looking to bring you back on and have you just continue to drop these gems because there are folks who are thinking about going to the keto direction. I know because I get the comments every week,
Yeah.
and they have these questions. And so to have a nutritionist come on and clear up some of these myths, and also to offer us and say, look, you can take dairy and you can add your own. You can be in charge of your sweeteners. You can use sweeteners that not only sweeten the food, but they add micronutrients to your body as well. And so these little things that are just a part of your everyday experience, your son, I know you have a beautiful boy. He's going to grow up knowing about this, no problem.
Oh
But
God.
so many of us didn't. And so, to have you on and to be able to offer this to us, I really just want to thank you.
It's my pleasure, and I look forward to the next conversation. And if anyone wants to reach out, definitely let them know how to reach me.
How can they do, by the way?
You can find me at the Nutrition Lady on Instagram, and then the Nutrition Lady on Facebook as well. So same picture, so it's me on both. So.
Okay, and I'll be putting the links in when I post this as well, and so they'll be able to go and find you as well. So
Awesome.
once again, thank you so much, and folks, that is the podcast for today. We will see you all next time.
All
Thanks.
right, thank you. Bye-bye.